without further ado, I would like to hand over the mic to my colleague Tianeng, who's going to introduce our speaker, Kenny. Thank you both for joining us, and thank you all for listening in. Here's it for you. Tianeng, you can take over.
Thanks, Luana. And hi, everyone. My name is Tianeng, your facilitator for today. So I would assume that all of us, almost 40 people join us today, all join for Kenny. But just in case you miss his bio, so Kenny is the director of Garden Asia, which is the hortainment arm of the IFA Group, and also a thought leader in the farm entertainment space. In 2000, Kenny realigned the company's direction to create holistic experience as a means to introduce a naturally inspired perspective to life. They call it hortainment, and Kenny called himself a hortainer. And this has been driving IFA's journey till today. And Garden Asia, the company that Kenny is heading, aims to draw people closer to nature through curated experience that are naturally inspired. So that is a quick snapshot of Kenny. But before I dig in with Kenny, I would like to share a bit more about how we know Kenny and why we thought it's great that we have him today for this 1 hour session. So I remember 4 years ago I met Kenny. That was during a launch learning series arranged by Singapore Management University. He was one of the panelists, I was one of the audience, and he was sharing his excitement and challenges of running a family business, which is committed to protecting and supporting Singapore's local agriculture. I was fascinated, and fast forward 4 years later, I'm in the same industry, loving every bit of it. And I can't say Kenny has nothing to do with it. So by having him here with us today, we hope to bring the same awareness and curiosity to our community. Okay, Kenny, how are you? Morning.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for having me.
Just now we had an intro of you, but what seems most interesting to me is you call yourself a 4th generation farmer.
Yeah.
But I also know that you graduated from NUS with a real estate degree.
Yeah.
Tell us how that happened, your background, and how you end up doing what you're doing today.
I guess, I think it's yes, I call myself a farmer because I'm a 4th gen farmer. So I'm in the horticulture industry. So it's all more about plants and trees. And the thing itself is that despite the fact that, we are in this whole environment of nature, but it doesn't come by chance, I guess, because I grew up with nature. But the thing itself is that when I graduated from NUS way back in 1999, that's quite some time back, crisis hit then as well. There was a financial crisis. And the realism itself is that I couldn't find a job then. Yeah. So I think every farmer's parents will want the kids to grow up, have a good education and get out of the industry. And I think I'm similar in that context during that time. So when I was just looking for jobs and found that there's a project that the company is embarking on, and I was asked to help, and I was yeah, why not, since I have the time. Went on in, but nobody told me that once you're in for life. So that's why I'm here. But I think it's really a interesting journey. I've been there for 20 over years and learned quite a fair bit, and was really privileged because when I was in, not only understanding your family business, you understand what landscaping is all about. And then way back in 2005, we started the Kranji Countryside Association, and I was literally involved in the farming community. And that really changed my life. I really look into how things look at in terms of agriculture. Horticulture is part of agriculture anyway. So I have really the privilege to serve the farmers in Singapore, and did a conference in 16 with Commonwealth, get to know all the farmers around the world. That gave me a really in-depth understanding that we are not alone, really. We are not alone at all.
Great, well said. We're not alone, especially the world experiencing this COVID. And this month, our theme is insecurity. So we're feeling all kinds of emotions about all kinds of things. And I believe that insecurity is one key descriptor of the many things that we're experiencing right now. So for you, a modern farmer, a guy that runs the company, you have worked with farmers to support the local community and help people put food on the table throughout this COVID-19 madness. So I just want to know, what is insecurity to you, and what are you most insecure about?
I think to put things in perspective, Singapore is a city-state, and I think there is a lot of friends in here today. Some of you may not be familiar with Singapore. I think as a small little country itself, in the 60s, we actually export food, really. We export pork, we are 104% efficient in pork, we are 100% in eggs and, in vegetables, etc. And within such a short time of 50 over years, Singapore became a first world country, of course, at the expense, all right, of land, because we need the land to build the buildings, industrialization, to create our financial hub, our airport, our seaport, all this starts to come into play. And so if you look at that from that perspective, we are no different from any parts of the world, right? Because if you are a city itself, you'll find that a lot of land has been sacrificed or sold to developers, and you started to see more and more farmers being asked to sell their land, and their children are in the city. The parents are literally living in the city, or they continue to retire in their farm. I think there's no difference for us here as well. So I think in terms of the agriculture environment today, what happens is that less than 1% of the land is left in Singapore for agriculture. And the next question that many people have asked is there even a space for agriculture in Singapore? And many who have been to Singapore will only know Singapore as our shopping belt, Malayan, Marina Bay Sands, but nobody has ever thought that we have agriculture. So when we created the conference way back in 2016 with Commonwealth, with friends from Australia, UK, you name them, what surprises them is that we do have a countryside in Singapore. And I think that is a need, right? I mean, regardless of where you're from, food is still food, and we need food, and we need farmers. And I think, Tian-Ning, you're right, in this COVID itself, farmers are also the frontliners, in today's world. And unfortunately, not many people give credits to them. That is, to me, is just as important.
Yes. You mentioned a very important topic, which is for a lot of modern city dwellers. Even if we cook, we buy the ingredients from the supermarket, from the shelf. But we also know that there is someone really remotely somewhere there that is growing our food. But what happened between farm and fork? What happened to our food in between? Can you map out the journey for us?
Yeah, I think it's not rocket science, really. I mean, food is food. You need time to grow food. And Singapore itself, we focus on 3 core food: leafy vegetables, food fish, and your eggs. All right, we don't have meat, so there's no meat. Majority of the meat are imported as well. 90% of our meat, or 90% of our food in general, are imported as well. So if you look at the food chain, most of the products that was produced locally will be basically delivered to your sales touch points like supermarkets or market within a day, within 24 hours. That means they will harvest that, or they will, pack them, and then through deliveries, they will go to all the touch points that were literally for sales. So I think that's common. But I think one of the key challenges that we find in Singapore, or even cities around the world, I'm not sure, maybe you can share for those who are here, that we realize that in the cities itself, people who support local are usually younger. I have organized several farmers market during my term in the society. And one of the key findings that I had that was really interesting is that 56% of the audience that joined the farmers market are below 45 years old. And 76% of them are female. So male don't get it. I don't understand why. So the thing is that they support it. But then on the other side of the coin, you start to realize that those people who support local, they are so busy in the city. They work really hard, all right? And they literally have no time to cook. So if they don't cook anymore, how are they going to help and support local? So that's going to be a very big gap that I feel that we need to marry. And we have to really truly target this and ask ourselves, do we really understand the people on the ground, and what can we do with them?
Are you saying that for people that cook, I would imagine is for us like normal consumers as compared with restaurants?
Yes, of course, of course, of course. We are just talking in general. Definitely, if you talk about restaurants, hawkers, you know, restaurants and hawkers, I'll classify them as B2B, which is their business entity. So once they are a business entity itself, they will literally look at their bottom line, and the price of the produce are very critical. And, you know, and thus that's the reason why they will have an option, or many options to be frank, to choose from the suppliers that are supplying them food. But if I refer to supporting local farms, you'll find that majority of them are just you and I, who are very passionate. We travel around the world. We saw what farmers market is, and we are really excited about it. And we want to support local. So, but that's why I said that unfortunately, quite a number of us don't cook anymore due to our hectic lifestyle. And, you know, I have friends that tells me that, you know what, I bought the tray of 10 eggs, and the 10 eggs itself, half of them are left in the fridge and I have to throw it away because I've forgotten that I have 10 eggs, you know. So I think this is just what I hear, and I think this is very valid in today's world. And if I ask friends around the cities, I think they have the same thing as well.
Let's talk about support local. So one big benefit for support local would be we will be supporting more farmers, because the farmers will get a higher premium from the purchase. But other than supporting farmers, are there any other benefits like for consumers if I want to decide whether I want to support local or not, from nutrition or from environmental impact maybe?
Yeah, I mean, no, if you look at it from, I mean, let's not complicate food. That's what I always tell people. All right, it's very easy for anyone to bring in very big topics into agriculture and says that, you know, what can we do, etc. But maybe let's put it in perspective, right? Food security and climate change. I mean, these are the two that's going hand in hand, right? So if you ask me, you know, what is the biggest thing happening right now is that climate change does impact the farmers for sure. I think that's for sure. The benefit of supporting local, simplify it, no farmers, no food. And one day you realize that if you have money on the table, you can't eat money, right? So if that is going to be the situation, and you know that that is going to be real, then that is more than one motivation that you have to support local farmers. One of the biggest, I feel that it's a problem, or maybe it's just something that people tend to take it for granted, is that farmers are entrepreneurs, guys. You know, I mean, it's no difference from Facebook, no difference from what we are doing today. Their bottom line matters to them. And, you know, and every farmer's dream is to grow as big as they could, right? Just like any other businesses. But many farmers somehow, you know, majority of them are smaller farmers. They kind of leave it to fate. And they'll say, oh, this is not a good career. I want my kids to get out of this farming. It's a tough job. And because it goes from one decade to another decade, one generation to another generation, sooner or later, you realize there will be no more farmers. And when there is no farmers, there's no food on the table. I think that's it, right? So there is no rocket science to say why you need to support local. Climate change, I think, is a given, because supporting, if you talk about food miles, they are all within your vicinity. It's definitely cheaper. But the thing is that if you look at why support local, it's no brainer really. Unless you say that there is a magical pill that I can eat and can fill me up every day, then of course, then next time you don't really need farmers anymore.
Yeah, let's talk about farmers, because I am from China and my grandparents before, like they are farmers before they moved into the cities. And the farming community they were in are relatively poor. They use very traditional farming methods, which means that it's very labor intensive. At the same time, I've seen from documentary of those relatively well-off American farmers like operating this huge machine on their huge farms. So give us a snapshot of the farmers in Singapore. Where do they live? Where do they farm? And especially when you said like less than 1% of the land for farming.
I think Singapore itself is really very different, right? First of all, in terms of size, we are really one small little red dot. So it's very hard for us to compare to even China, Australia, or New Zealand. Countrysides are miles away, but we are just minutes away, really. I mean, the exciting thing about Singapore is that you can visit a farm in the countryside, and 45 minutes away, you are in Orchard Road or you're in Marina Bay Sands, right? So distance play a part when it comes to farming. So if you look at Singapore context, we are urban farmers in general, regardless of whether you are a soy-based farmer or whether you're a rooftop farmer, we are still an urban farmer. So in that context, you find that, comparative to what a lot of people have a misconception is that Singapore farms has actually progressed. If you ask me whether is there small lot farmers in Singapore, majority are small lot. Our space itself is not big. We are limited by size. Are they very stubborn farmers? I think artists or farmers are the same. We are stubborn in our own rights. Are they receptive to technology? I think if you see them as entrepreneurs, if technology guarantees them businesses and profits, my question is why not? And of course, I could have just simplified it in this context, but the problem with agriculture is that it's really very complex. You have to look at it from the labor issue, the talent pool issue, the perception by the locals of what farming is all about. I think with all this coming into play, then you can see what is the current situation that's in. So Singapore itself in the 60s itself, I think is similar to all the developing countries where farmers are trying to push their kids out to the city. All right. But I think if you look at Singapore today, I think quite a number or majority of the farmers, some of them are still in the retirement mode, which is no difference from any other farms. But quite a number of them, the younger generations are coming. They are trying to explore new ideas, and you see that farms started to give educational tours, and then they started to go into branding. You knew that we are a little different from the previous, and farming has actually grown from generation to generation. So I think Singapore is a little bit different, but I think it's quite similar to all the city farmers. And I think if you compare us apple to apple, pretty much the same, I guess.
Yeah, great. I was about to ask you what are the top 3 challenges that Singapore farmers are facing right now, but I think from your sharing just now, I would say one, limited resources, like the land is simply there yet. And secondly, is the consumer's behavior pattern, like they don't cook anymore. And the third maybe is the talent, like they don't want their children to stay in the farming industry. Is it right for me to say that those are the top 3 challenges?
Yeah, I mean, of course, I think the challenges itself is certainty. When I say certainty itself, it's that, just like many years ago, if you ask any parent, if their kids tell their parents they want to be a farmer, what's their reaction would be? Chances are they would say, no way. All right, get a job, and work for someone. Just be an entrepreneur, just do something else, right? Why do you want to be a farmer? But I think today itself, interestingly, as much as we are saying that, it looks very gloomy in the agriculture, but actually, if you look at Singapore today, it's quite interesting. The number of urban farms in the city is popping up almost every other month. All right. And if you ask a young Singaporean or even in Singapore itself, and they will say that if you're an urban farmer today, you're so cool, and I think it's the same as in New York. I mean, I have a couple of relatives there as well, and they were telling me that, urban farmers are really cool now. If you go to Australia, it's pretty much the same. But I mean, having a cool factor into agriculture, seems like there's quite a big turn and change, where agriculture started. But I think it's going to be very different because farm is still farm, food is still food. It still takes a lot of hard work to produce food. And I think it will take a while. But I always believe that regardless of where we are from, right, the motivation of farmers is literally in the ecosystem as well. It takes the whole village to make it work. It doesn't mean that the farmers have to just fight for themselves. It takes the demand side of things. It takes the government policies. It takes the everybody literally to make it work. If not, it's really tough for this to even be on the mainstream.
Yeah, and you and your company, your team are important stakeholder, I would say, for these local farmers. And I know that during COVID, you launched this Survivor Pack to help farmers and connect them with consumers. Tell us more about the Survivor Pack.
So this was really thanks to COVID, really. I mean, I still remember that during my term in the society itself, we were trying very hard because of the success of a farmers market. So the sales of the so our just some okay, let me just give everybody a backdrop, right? When we do farmers market, our mantra is very simple, right? No farmers, no market. So every time when we finish a market, we have to ensure the top 5 top sales must be the farmers. Because if the top 5 is food vendors, then we become a food festival rather than a farmers market. So thankfully, after 5 years, 13 to 14 markets that we organized, the top 3 will always be farmers. And we knew that we have it right there, right? That farmers are the most important people that we wanted to do the farmers market for. And then with that in mind, you started to realize that the consumers' habits are very different, all right? And they started to support local in a very different manner as well. Then we tried to say, hey, what if we start some subscription and see whether it resonates with the response that we had from our farmers market. Unfortunately, I tried twice and it didn't work with my team. That was during the society time. And we were a bit kind of curious. Is it because Singapore have very limited resources in terms of variety, that consumers, when they buy vegetables, they want to buy tomatoes, they want to buy other stuff, and Singapore itself only have that few? Or is it because that Singapore itself, every single step that you take, a supermarket or a food court is just around the corner, that you don't really need to think too much about it? So we are kind of like take it to the acceptance that maybe it's just about variety, so that we just leave it as that we couldn't just move on. When COVID started, I chanced upon a few opportunities. I mean, I chat with the farmers. I realized they have huge problems because of logistical disruption that's happening right now. And somehow I have a restaurant in my farm, all right, and because of the circuit breaker, I can't have dining in anymore. And my team is like literally stuck. What should we do next, right? I run events in the farm. I have hospitality. I have a farm stay in the farm as well. But all these are literally non-existent during the circuit breaker. Yes. So then we started to say, hey, you know what? Why don't we just, while we do home deliveries for our restaurants, can we also provide a service for our clients and we serve them local produce? So that was how it started. But then on the top of my mind and my gut feel, because of my involvement in the farming community for 15 years, my passion is with the farming community. It kind of hit me and says that, you know what, Kenny, if you don't start something to promote local produce during this COVID, where everybody is so concerned about food, after COVID itself, everybody will take farming for granted again. So that was my key motivation. And I started to talk to a few farmers that I know. I say that, hey, I have this idea, would you support me? And thankfully, the trust was with me. And I was really grateful that they trusted me. And I kickstarted the survival pack, just like a Kickstarter concept. I need 500 to kickstart this contract farming with our local farmers. And 6 months contract, I will deliver to you on a weekly basis. So that's how it all started. But it doesn't come easy, really. I mean, Singapore has more than 5.5 million population. And if you talk about working population, maybe 3, and I'm just asking for 500. All right. So it seems like it's quite easy, but I can tell you it's a hard time. It's really difficult just to get people to subscribe to local.
But those who do subscribe, like, what is their demographic? What is their profile?
I think we have not gone into phase 2 of that yet. We have the we know where they are, which part of Singapore they're from, and I think all I can say is that this group of people who support local converts, right? It means they literally believe in this. They believe in supporting local. They wanted farm fresh produce, and they know the benefits of supporting local. It's not just about, I still remember there is one of the subscribers that told me that, when you support local, you are not doing them a favor, but we need them. We need them to grow food for us. And I think that is a fundamental change that we need to have in our mind. Don't treat the farmers as if, I think we need to support them. I need to help them. Yeah, but rather to say that, because by saying that, sometimes you kind of give them the pity vote. that just try to support them and make them sustainable. But rather, I think we should have the mindset that we need them. Without them, there's no food on our tables, right? So I think the survival pack has a very huge learning curve for me, which I think I will take another session to describe everybody, to share with you what's the in-depth. But for now, it was a really steep learning curve for me in today's context, and lots of learning experiences make us even stronger in what we're believing in. Good thing is that we're going to kickstart it, despite the fact that the numbers are still very small, purely because consumers contacted us and said, please make it work. Farmers told us that, let's not disappoint the people who supported us. And, after a huge deliberation with my team, and we say, you know what, let's do it. And, we are keeping our fingers crossed. We hope that we can do more, moving forward.
Yeah, great. And looking broadly and looking forward, what are the key changes that you are trying to lead with your company, or looking at, like, in the next 2-3 years, what are the key strategic drives that you are planning for this community, for this consumer, to hopefully change for the better, to better support the farmers?
Yeah, I think, as I shared earlier, agriculture is a very huge topic. There is just too many things that we need to support, whether it's from technology, whether it's from the big data. But I think when I started the local farm, we were very focused. So our main focus is to no farmers, no food. That was our mantra. With that mantra itself, then we ask ourselves, what are we trying to solve? And I think what we're trying to resolve is to continue to engage the young, because they are the one that support local. We need to continue to engage them, and we hope to inspire younger farmers to continue to be growers. I think this is something that is very deep in my heart and very passionate about, because people have no incentives to be growers anymore. They can be a trader. Frankly, it's so much easier for farmers to be a trader than to be a grower. And and at the end of the day, if that is the case, then who's going to grow food for us? So I think my objective for starting the local farm was to really target the younger generation. Hopefully that more talent pool finds the prospect of coming to this industry. At the same time itself, encourage younger farmers, whether it's in Singapore, regionally or globally, to continue to be farmers, continue to be growers, because this is our time, all right? The future is about food, and we have to give them hope. And I think through this ground up initiative that we do, and I think that the local farm should be able to scale, and hopefully will do more for the industry in that sense.
And we can do this together.
I'm sure.
Yeah, I totally enjoy the conversation with you, and conscious of time, I will need to hand over to Sarah soon for the Q&A session. I know that I've seen so many questions coming in, but before we go there, can you, if there is one message you would like our audience to take away from this session, what would it be?
Wow, I think it's as I shared, let's not complicate food. No farmers, no food, guys. That's it. Just remember this: when there's no farmers in the world, there will be no food on our table. And I really like to urge everybody that support local by buying their food. It's not just about farms. Any local itself, there are businesses that needs to be supported. So for farmers, in a sense, the more you buy, the more they see this as a potential investment for their businesses, the more prospect they have as a business, the more growth they will have, the more talent pool will join in, and the industry will grow. All right. So it's our choice. All right. If you feel that, it's easy, but it's really not easy on the ground, because especially for Singapore, this is a very good example that in Singapore itself, it just took us 50 over years to have our food security strategy change within such a short time. In your country, where land is plentiful, it may take you 50 years, more than 50 years, maybe 500 years to really see the impact, but it's still happening. I went to so many cities in the world, and you see the amount of agricultural land being sacrificed for urbanization is amazingly fast. And it's going to be a huge disruption in food in the long run. So I think the time is now, I think, and all of us can just do very simply by just supporting local, by buying local.
Awesome. Yeah. Sarah, over to you.
Hi, thanks, Kenny, for inspiring us so early in the morning. I think one of the positive thing about COVID is a bit of a wake-up call also for us about where our food comes from and how important farmers are, to our community. We have quite a few questions. So I think I'll take the first one from Georgia and Yongning, which is a bit in the same kind of category of question. The first one is it hard for Singaporean farmers to compete with the price of imported fruit and vegetables? And then Yonglin is asking, how much do I save or spend more subscribing to the survival pack, the one that you shared about, Kenny, compared to buying a similar brand from supermarkets?
All right. So, price is always a very big topic when it comes to local. But the thing is that nobody questioned about quite a number of stuff. One, where do the food comes from? How does it comes into Singapore? I mean, if you want to talk about price, thankfully, Mother Nature didn't tax any one of us today. If they tax Mother Nature tax, I'm sure Singapore food would be the cheapest among the rest. Just look at food miles. I mean, that's really one. But if you find that, is it tough for Singapore farmers to fight? I think yes. I think not just Singapore farmers, any farmers that is having it's not agriculture state like us, we definitely face challenges. Just imagine this simple topic, right? 90% of us, 90% of the food are imported in Singapore. So to put that into perspective for the two questions was being asked, whether is it challenging, do we find it cheaper? I would prefer not to look at price because it's not a fair comparison at all. All right. I mean, if you want to import stuff, there's so many things that you import. It's always cheaper if you buy it from overseas because they have the huge economy of scale. But Singapore itself has reached a state that we used to export food, guys. I wish I said, just that today itself, nobody cares about agriculture. And then with such a small little piece left for us to even fight for our own living, and then suddenly we are being asked whether are we comparable to the rest. I think why don't we compare us when we're in the 60s? I'm sure we are comparable. That's why we can export, right? So let's put everything back in perspective. And if you look at the way that I see the whole situation today when it comes to food, I think one has to understand, is local farm really necessary? I mean, if everybody based on price, I'm really afraid that there is no incentive for farmers to even consider that anymore. We are definitely find it a bit more on the difficult side because land is scarce, labor is expensive in Singapore, and we have all the other costs that comes into play. But that doesn't mean that we can't be compatible. I think at the end of the day itself is that you need to give demand, right? Yeah. So if you can guarantee the farmers a demand, I'm sure the supply price will come down. But if we base on 90% of imported food, we are fighting against 90% of price war that is coming into Singapore. Which business can survive? Not just farmers. So let me share with you an egg story. I think the egg story is going to make it very easy for everybody to understand. In Singapore itself, we consume 3 to 4 million eggs a day. Yeah. All right, and 4 to 6 million eggs on the weekend. All right, so we eat a lot of eggs because Singapore is multiracial. We have different cuisine and dishes that uses eggs as well. Singapore produce only 1 million eggs a day. Logically, if we have 3 million demand, 1 million supply, my farmers should sold out. But do you know that the unfortunate truth is that they can't sell off their own eggs? I'm not joking. The reason is because two things happens. One, they are caught in this whole dilemma whereby eggs is in high demand. They are importers themselves. So as importers, they also import eggs as well. And their price itself is usually pegged to our neighbor's price purely because we want to be competitive. Now, put yourself in their shoe. I have 90% of the eggs are from overseas. 10% is from Singapore. All right, I'm fighting on price. And then at the end of the day, if you go to supermarket, you'll find that some local farmers have to give you discounts. I don't get it. I really don't get it. We have not enough, and yet the farmers have to fight so hard to give discounts to get people to buy their own local eggs. And you look at the news recently about eggs, 250,000 eggs are being destroyed because of due to all the logistical issues that we have. So if you look carefully itself, this is a real problem, just that we do not understand agriculture enough, all right, to say what is right or wrong. I mean, I hope that gives you, everybody, a good background that, you know, demand supply matters to agriculture.
All right. Yeah, that is a quite challenging issue that we're facing right now, especially recently with the news came out about about 250,000 eggs, I believe. Yes,
That's
that's
right.
quite bad. The next question is from Julia. Are there any certain categories of produce that Singapore can really own and be competitive in?
I think Singapore itself, the government has a very strong mandate, and I think that they are not wrong. They focus on nutritional values. So in our 20 or 30-30 strategy, in 2030, the government of Singapore hopes to achieve 30% of production of nutritional needs of Singapore. So they have also classified 3 main core food that we are focusing on, which is leafy vegetables, eggs, and food fish. So these are going to be the 3 core basic that Singapore will focus on. But of course, other than that itself, we have other farms like frog farms, we have crocodile farm, we have goats farm, we have cows farm in Singapore, and even some smaller farmers that are trying out different alternatives to protein, such as insects. They're all coming up. All right, all this will come in, but the core 3 will still be the same of eggs, vegetables, and food fish. So I think in that context, I think we are definitely focusing on that to make it work. And I believe that, you know, if we put the whole mind together, the whole ecosystem is in place, we will achieve our nutritional needs. But we can never go back to be where we are to export food. It's going to be quite impossible, all right, from the land size that we are in today.
Understand.
Yeah.
I see. All right, maybe we'll end it with we have a few questions that we can send over to you, Kenny, and then maybe we can post it on our social media because we're a bit short on time, but maybe we'll end it with a positive note. What are you looking most forward to after this COVID circuit breaker period?
I think this circuit breaker is a hard reset for everyone, not just farms, but I think every industry that we're in, anyone that's in here, you notice that this whole COVID is doing a hard reset, in mindset, reset in businesses. Some businesses will fail, some businesses will literally be obsolete, new businesses will be formed. But interestingly, what I see the future will be is that food will still be food. And food is going to be a big topic moving forward that will then overarching climate change as the big topic moving forward as well. So climate change, food security will literally be on everybody's mind, and government of all countries will relook into how they be self-efficient within their country. Because of this big disruption, they also have to relook into themselves. And in terms of other businesses, I think it's going to be the same. It's going to be a hard reset. And I think, as we know, right, in businesses, the only thing that's constant is change, and we have to adapt. And I think this is a good reset that, you know, everything is now flattened further, and we need to really think really hard and see how we can all work together. I think collaboration is going to be the next big thing, you know, where people are coming together. Maybe businesses will merge more. I wouldn't know, but that's how I feel.
All right. Thank you so much for inspiring us this morning and on such a heavy topic such as thank you. And thank you so much for kind of giving us an information and a bit of a wake-up call about farming and how we can support the farmers in Singapore. I think that's for me, like personally, that's the key takeaway for this. We will share with everybody on our social media a little bit about the survival pack that you have, Kenny.
Thank you.
So that if you would like to help Kenny and other farmers in Singapore, not help, support, yes, because we need them for our food. You can click on the link and then you can get fresh vegetables delivered straight to your house. All right, thank you so much. I hope you had a
everyone.
fantastic morning with
Thanks
us.
for having me this morning as well. Thank you.